So, Alan, I'm so excited to have you back today as Mask of the Phantasm has just been released in 4K. And I thought there's no one better to talk to about this film than the guy who conceived the story for it and co-wrote it. So, Alan Burnett, welcome back to Batman the Animated Series podcast.
I'm happy to be here. I may ask you, what is 4K?
But, of course. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to answer that. So 4K is basically 4 times the amount of pixels on your screen per, I forget the exact measurement, but essentially it's the highest resolution possible for your home entertainment system.
No, I guess I'll have to get a new copy of it then.
So. I feel like Warner Brothers should be sending you a new copy, man. They should be sending you every time. But anyway, welcome back to the show. To start with, I just wanted to remind you that Mask of the Phantasm is considered by many to be the greatest Batman film ever made. It's actually about Bruce Wayne and Batman, and that's why I think it really holds up. It's not just about his rogues gallery or an origin story for a villain. It's about the man behind the mask. So when you hear people say that to you, what are some of the memories that instantly pop into your head about the making of this movie?
Well, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a movie about Bruce Wayne and tell the origin. We hadn't done that in the series, and we didn't have he didn't have a love life in the series, and we never really dealt with the origin in the series. So we decided to hit all those points when we did the movie, and we ended up also showing the origin of Joker in a way. So fans really liked it and still like it, and it's because of the fans that it still has something of a life, that it hasn't really gone away. So I'm very happy about that.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's considered by many, many people to be one of the best. In fact, when it came out, I think it's Sisko and Ebert were amazed at how good an animated Batman film was, and they actually rated it higher than Batman Returns, which was the last Batman film out, before this one came out.
And one of my sad points early on in the film is that they didn't review it when it came out as a movie, and it didn't get great reviews. I mean, it got a wide spread of reviews. It's actually people seem to like it more now than they did then. A year went by, and I was back to my usual life without the movie and making series and stuff. And I was on vacation, I think, and I got a call from my boss. She was very excited. She said, "Siskel and Ebert reviewed your movie and they loved it." And I said, "You got to be kidding." And the reason why they reviewed it is because it just came out as a video, as a home video. And so, and they occasionally did home video reviews. And I remember Siskel saying, "We should have reviewed this when it came out because it's terrific." And Ebert liked it. And it was just really thrilling to hear them talk about the movie. I can't tell you, it was like all the bad reviews that the movie may have gotten in the past just went away because these two were praising it. And it seems to me that was like a turning point in my head, at least, of the critical acceptance of the movie when they did their review. So anyways, that's that story.
Well, that's really interesting because that's a good point that I haven't even thought of. When this film came out, I know that it was only in a few select theaters around America, and it only had a short run, and then it basically disappeared and then went to home video, as you said, however many months afterwards. And that's where it developed that huge cult following that it has, and how many fans have watched this and how many people have shared it with other people. And it's just grown to be this big Batman film. But at the time when it came out, you guys obviously watching the movie, you worked so hard because it looks like the show on steroids, right? Like it's not the animated series. It's just, it's its own thing, but it exists in that world still. I'm sure it was quite deflating, when you finally launched this thing out there and you're like, okay, here we go. And it was on Christmas Day, which I'm sure was probably a very difficult time to release a movie. So when it was first put out there, how were you feeling, when you were kind of going through, were you looking at a lot of reviews? Were you trying to obviously see how it was doing?
Yeah, I looked at a lot of reviews, and like I say, they were mixed. They would send them to us, the publicity department of Warner Brothers, and they were mixed. And Some didn't like it at all, as I say. But I went to the theater about 4 or 5 times. And I told the theater owner, I made this thing. I just want to see it with an audience. And that was a thrill. That was a thrill. To see it with an audience was a lot of fun. I would actually be watching them as they were watching the movie. So, but it was
That's very Hitchcock of you, Alan. Very Hitchcock to do that.
they treated it like a sort of a kiddie film. Actually, in Los Angeles at the time, it only played matinees. It didn't play the evenings, and it was out there for just for about a week, and then it was gone. And
Crazy.
and yeah, and it was gone. But it's lived on, as I say. One of the joys lately was reading an interview with Robert Pattinson, who plays Batman in The Batman, the movie that was out, and he also praised the film as an example of, and he called it the only example in being Batman was a curse for Bruce Wayne. It was a real burden, and movies don't show that. But he latched on to that in his performance apparently, and I was happy to hear that Pattinson had seen the movie. It's just it's
Yeah.
just nice. It's just nice to read.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, Batman now praising your Batman then, it's amazing,
yeah,
and it just goes to show, like I said, that this film has just built up such a huge following, and it will continue to live on as one of the prime examples of like this is how you can do a Batman movie. Because the thing with this film that I love the most, as you said, Batman, it's a burden, it's a curse to be Batman. He made a vow and he's obligated to his parents, and just going through the films, this was the first film to show that ever on the big screen. We never had that. Even with television shows, we never had that. We had some clips of him losing his parents, but we never saw the journey of the struggle of I have to do this because if I don't, I'm letting them down. And I think that's what really stands out to me. I mean, Kevin Conroy in this is just unbelievable. Uh,
yeah.
his his performance in this, in my opinion, is the best performance of his career as Batman and Bruce Wayne. The scene where he's begging with his parents' grave to like release him from this vow is amazing. I mean, every time I see it, I get chills. I well up. It's an incredible performance, and it's a voice performance. He can't even rely on his body language.
Yes, yeah, you're right. And that particular page, I may have mentioned this in the last time we talked, but that particular page of that script was the only page left untouched. It never changed colors as they do when they revise pages in the script. That speech was so perfect. It stayed forever, and it was largely written by Marty Pasco. When we did the script, I intended to write the whole thing, and there just wasn't time. But I wrote a pretty complete and detailed outline so that I could divide it up among my story editors, and they could all write a piece of it. And Marty got that section of the cemetery scene and some of that flashback. And Paul Dini, of course, got the Joker's introduction section. He's our Joker guy,
Of course.
and Reeves did the last act of it with the last battle between Batman and Joker. So, but that particular page that never changed. Not one word of it ever changed.
Yeah, it's
And
perfect.
yeah, and his performance is great. He had, as I've written, he has a powerful voice, but it's a voice of unusual warmth. I mean, you can feel the warmth of this man in the performance. Yeah, it was wonderful.
There's so much weight to it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and then in that scene, obviously, Andrea shows up and says, maybe they sent me, and that leads me to my next question, which is, why did you decide on a love story for this film? Where did that come from, and what influenced that?
Well, we hadn't done one, and it was time to do it. And you have a movie, you might as well get into the emotions of a person, and that's the reason for the love story. my daughter's name is Andrea actually we call her, but she ended up being called Andrea in the movie, and it was just something a different approach to Batman than we had been taking. And like I said, we wanted to show the origin, but we wanted to show it in a way that was different and dramatic, and show that he was not all perfect from the beginning. And it's interesting, in writing a love story, anytime Bruce Wayne gets involved with a woman, he is you can feel it, and when you're writing it, you can just sense it that he's out of his comfort zone, and there's something about him that gets almost not oafish, but something. He's just not natural. He doesn't know quite what to do. This is not the life he was expected to live or wanted to live, at least in the beginning, and he fumbles. He's dislocated, and it's happened every time that we've put a love element into one of his stories. It's interesting to me. He's kind of a big boy.
Yeah, and that's a great point. He even says to Alfred, like, I don't know what to do. What do I do, Alfred? Like, this isn't part of the plan, Like, I think he's so set on what he was supposed to do, from years of traveling the world and training with all different types of martial artists and magicians and scientists, everything he did to bring him to that point. And then Andrea's thrown in at the last minute, and it completely throws him off the track. I love that. I think that's great because he's very calculated, he's the greatest detective in the world, but this is something that he can't, even fathom of, like, how do I handle this? And you're right, he's like a bumbling boy, trying to figure it all out.
Well, and Batman, we must never forget this, that Batman is it's a juvenile dream. It's a character that began with kids. And there's still that element to him. And no matter how serious they make him in the comic books, there is still that element that he is a juvenile fantasy. So
yeah, and also he's trapped in that moment as a kid, who lost his parents. He's always going to be that kid. So were there any first or second draft ideas that ultimately didn't make it into the movie when you were crafting the story?
There was talk about doing some. There was an episode we did in the series, which was called The Trial, where Batman got captured by his rogues gallery, and they put him on trial at Arkham. And there was talk about doing that. I never was interested in that, and because I always felt it was another rogues gallery story, and it wasn't getting deep into Bruce, and so that ended up being put on the side. And then I went with this. I mean, there was really no list of ideas that I was going through. When I hit upon doing a love story, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah. So with when talking about writing it, then Phantasm as a villain, when I saw this very young, so Phantasm as a kid, is quite intimidating and spooky. It's a very spooky bad guy, if I could put that in quotation marks. And I just remember being scared of the way that character moves, and through the smoke and everything, especially in that graveyard sequence. So where did the idea of the Phantasm come from for you?
Well, I wanted a character who could appear and disappear easily, and so I felt he'd be lost in mist and disappear that way. People think he's predicated on the Reaper, which is a Batman villain, but the truth is I never had read a story with the Reaper in it before I started this movie. I read some stories afterwards, and the villain that I sort of like had in mind was somebody like Mysterio, who got lost in mist, and that was an inspiration for me. And the outfit was all Bruce Timm's design, and it worked out pretty well. I don't know how much to spoil here, so I'm not going to try and spoil.
Oh, you can spoil it, Alan. This movie's 30 years old. Everyone that's listening has seen it. Yeah,
You're right. So yeah, you can sort of tell that. So, and it wasn't. The film has a mystery, but it's not so much a mystery as it is suspense. I mean, will Bruce Wayne and Andrea rise above this? Will they make it through this together? And of course, when she turns out to be the villain, all is going to be lost. So how will that happen? What will happen in the end? Anyways, it's more of a suspense film than it is a mystery film, but it does have a mystery for a while, I think.
Yeah, so what influenced you in making it a mystery? Because it is considered a children's film, and of course, I'm not saying that you have to placate to children, but you create such a very thorough story here with red herrings. You've got like Arthur Reeves, you've got Andrea's dad, Carl Beaumont. These are suspects, that could be the Phantasm. And then, of course, at the end, you reveal it's Andrea. So, why did you decide to do? It's not a whodunit, but you know what I mean, a mystery. Where was that from?
Well, I mean, it's just that's the way it got structured as a mystery. I intended to start off as a mystery, but I realized later, as things started to close in with these characters, that you would start to realize, oh, it could be her. Oh, is it her? Oh, it's her. Damn, what's going to happen now?
Mm.
And and it is a movie that I think kids can watch and enjoy. I don't know, how old were you when you watched it?
I was 7.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Why not? I mean, purposely, I'll tell you that we made the killings in the movie pretty off screen, so
Yeah.
it's not a bloody movie at all. Although today I've been told it would get an R rating because there's a lot of smoking in it. But
Yes, yeah. I love that
yes,
though. I mean, honestly, you want gangsters to smoke. Plus, there's one
yeah,
character who ends up, he's in a breathing mask because he smokes so much. So you were giving that message.
yeah. Abe Vigoda. He
Yeah.
plays um,
Sal Valestra.
Balestra, Al
Yeah.
Balestra, and we've created his daughter in the comic books, Paul Dini and I.
Have
Uh,
you? Oh man, I still haven't gotten around to reading season 3 because I think I told you last time. I'm waiting for the whole collection
yeah,
to be in one, like, graphic novel. That's what I'm trying to think of. So yeah, I'm waiting for that. That's cool though that you've carried on
yeah,
that story. I love that.
yeah. Her name is Esther Balestra.
Estra Valestra.
She's a cross between Ma Barker and Liza Minnelli. That's how awesome.
I love that. Yeah, so with the gangsters in this film, they have such great names. Like we've just been talking about Sal Lester, Buzz Bronski, Chucky Soul. Like those names. Just I've remembered forever since I've seen this film. They're just such memorable gangster names. And you didn't. What was it like writing this film without BS&P kind of really breathing down your neck?
Well, I felt like we had a bit more freedom, and like I said, we did have to do a movie that would get a rating that kids could see it. So we were careful. BS&P was never a problem on Batman the Animated Series. In some ways, they were heroes for us. Avery Coburn, I may have mentioned her in the last interview I had. She was our BS&P person, and she truly helped us. And she truly understood what we were doing. And even though we were under children's programming over at Fox, we were a 3:30 in the afternoon show, so we could be right there with Mannix and the other TV detectives who got reruns in the afternoon. So we just watched the violence, and the rest of it, it's a pretty mature film. I mean, the dialogue's pretty good, and the performances are great. It was an interesting process. Making the film was interesting. Originally, it was supposed to be a home video, and Eric Radomski, who is one of our directors, or our main director, Bruce and Eric honchoed the show, the series, and everything throughout Batman the Animated Series life, and he had made a CG computer graphics Gotham City, which opens the movie. An executive came over from the lot. He saw this opening, and he said, "You know what? Let's put this in the theaters." And that's how it got put in the theaters. They didn't give us more money. They didn't give us more time. And there was a while there where we were wondering if we really had a movie, because some of the animation had to be redone and redone and redone, because it just wasn't looking that good for a movie theater. But in the end, we got the important animation and the important scenes. and that's how it was made. We had, by the way, an executive an executive from the lot put in charge of the movie. Not that she did anything, but she was there as sort of a liaison between us and the studio. And her name was Dee Dee Allen. Do you know who Dee Dee Allen is?
No.
I did. As a film student, I thought, oh my God, Dee Dee Allen. She was the editor of, she's one of the most famous editors in all of movie history. She edited Bonnie and Clyde, and she
Okay.
edited Dog Day Afternoon. She may have edited Night Moves, which is another movie I love. But she's a fantastic editor. And she was assigned this movie to go. She was at the screening. She didn't say much. She really didn't do much. I'm not sure, but she was there if we needed her for something. And I was really dumbfounded that I actually met Dee Dee Allen. I mean, her editing eye is amazing, but I don't think she ever got Batman. Occasionally when she'd ask a question, you realize she doesn't really know the history of Batman or anything about it. One
Right.
day, we were about three-quarters of the way through production. We had a cut film, and there were still a few scenes that had to be slid in to fill some gaps. But we had our film, and I came to my office in the morning, and I found this videotape, this cassette tape. Uh, we worked with cassette tapes in those days, and yes, and it said on it, Batman. I forget something about continuity. And I thought, what the heck is this? And I slipped it into the machine. And what somebody had done on the lot was taken the whole movie and and recut it so that the earliest scenes were at the beginning. All the flashbacks were at the beginning. And then we come to the present day and the movie went on. It was just totally everything. And I to this day, I don't know why anybody did this because it doesn't make any. But I was nervous that the lot was nervous about the film, and to me, it's very understandable with all its flashbacks. So the flashbacks are very understandable. And I called up executive producer Tom Rugen, and I said, "What is this? What are we supposed to do with this?" And he said, "It doesn't work, does it?" And I said, "No, it doesn't work." And
So someone was just tinkering to see if they could re-edit the movie to make it like
yeah,
canonically, like going through from start to finish, literally from when he meets Andrea all the way to the end scene with the Joker at the future
yeah,
world. Wow.
and and I never really found out who did this or why. I really never did find that out. But I have a feeling Dee Dee did it just to see what it looked like, because, like I said, I didn't think she got Batman, but it was a thrill to meet her, to see her. I mean, was such an amazing person. So that's that story. I've never really told that story, I don't
No,
think.
that's really cool. I love that. I didn't know that, and I just thinking about the movie where it's going from the start to finish in literally the way that it's done with flashbacks starting there. I can't imagine that ever being gripping enough, because what I love about the film is that we start with Batman in Gotham and he is Batman. You know, we start right away with him crashing through a window and punching goons in the face, and they're shooting bullets, and he stomps on a table when one of the guys is underneath and he knocks the guy out, and you're like, oh my god, this is Batman. Again, this movie is like the animated series on steroids. Batman's punching people in the face. He's like stomping them out. I love that. And then you get the Phantasm in the car park. If you waited so long for that to happen, I would be bored. Like, the flashbacks work because they're peppered in throughout the film. So you're not just having to watch this whole love story, kind of go from beginning to end, as it were, as when Andrea leaves him. And also, you would know that Andrea's the Phantasm if you did it like that, because her dad is dead,
Yeah.
and it's not Arthur Reeves. So you're like, oh, it's her.
It just none of that recut made sense. but I think they just did it. I don't know. Maybe that's a regular thing that they do on the lot to just jolt everybody. I don't know.
Kill some time, I guess. I
I
mean,
don't know.
you guys are under a time crunch, and you're trying to get it out there, and someone's re-editing it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other voice actor that has a scene in this that really stands out to me is Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Like him as Alfred is always an absolute treat. He's just the greatest Alfred I've ever seen. But there's a scene in this film where he talks to Bruce in the Batcave, and the way he tells him, like, I'm thankful that you haven't fallen into the same pit that Andrea did years ago. And that whole scene, was that you that wrote that scene, or was that one of the other co-writers?
It was Michael Reeves, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's another piece of dialogue that stayed untouched. I
right.
mean, it was wonderful. And he is the father, the daddy figure in this
Yeah.
movie. I mean, he is the guy who did diaper Bruce, and
Where I
yeah,
always now you brought that up, I always thought that was a really weird choice for Alfred to pick. I get it, like he's saying, "I know you so well, I diapered your bottom," but as a kid, I didn't. Even as an English kid, I didn't hear diapered. I heard died at your bottom, and I was like, "What is he talking about?" Like as a kid, I had no idea what he was talking about. But I mean, as an adult, I was like, "Diapered, okay, I get it. That's how well he knows him." But yeah, that was such an interesting choice of an example, I think, of Alfred to give. It was very random.
he was great. Ephraim was such a gentleman. He was Alfred. I mean, that was his personality. Very soft spoken and articulate and a sweet, sweet, sweet man.
Yeah, he's just an incredible Alfred, and I think that scene is one of his finest scenes as Alfred as well in that film. But like most of the people in this, and of course you had Dana Delaney as Andrea Beaumont.
Dana. Yeah, she was wonderful. And because she did this, we ended up also having her as Lois Lane
Yes.
in the Superman cartoons. Yeah, she was wonderful, and it's just a thrill to work with. She is meeting her in person. She's very much like Andrea in at least the first half before she goes killer. But but you believe her. You can see the anguish, and she's you can hear the anguish in her voice, and we loved working with her. We did very much. I found out later that she was very, very, very good friends with Arlene Sorkin. They had a steady date of watching the Oscars every year together, just the two of them. But they were big pals. I didn't realize that until last week.
Wow, I
But
didn't know that either.
and Arlene, by the way, has a voice in this
Yes, she
movie.
does. Yeah.
Yes, she is.
I for engagement.
Yes, yes, and that joke has never gotten a laugh. And all
What?
I can figure out is that the audience doesn't know how to spell engagement. That's all I can figure out. That joke has never gotten a laugh. And I wait and I listen because I was surprised it didn't happen the first time, and it's never happened. But I think people get the joke. I hope. I hope they're better.
Yeah, I think as a kid I didn't, but then as a young teenager, I definitely got the joke, and I've always enjoyed that. I think that's funny. It's like it's not Harley, but she is this kind of ditzy girl that like is there probably on her looks and for no other reason at this like big shindig at Wayne Manor, and she proves that in one sentence by saying "I for engagement." I think that's hilarious. And then she's dancing on the piano in the other scene and saying Brucey, and Alfred's like Miss Bambi's dancing on the piano again, sir. I thought that's great.
That,
Uh,
by the way, that joke actually happened at a Hollywood party, and somebody told me that one time. A sort of a ditzy uh, girlfriend of an older star who had said that to him in company, and I never
oh, so
forgot.
that's where it comes from then. That's
That's where it
amazing.
comes from. Yeah, it's just I thought, oh, this is a perfect spot to put that line. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm like I said, it never gets a laugh, but people don't. People are maybe too involved with other things going on in the movie. I don't know.
Maybe,
But
who
yes,
knows?
Arlene Sorkin did that voice, and she's much missed, much
Yeah,
missed.
yeah, absolutely. So did you ever manage to make it to any of the recordings of this film? Were you in the booth during some of the
Oh yeah,
recordings of this? Yeah.
yeah. I was probably at all the recordings,
Wow.
and we mixed it, and the sound I was there, and that was an interesting. That was interesting because this was intended to be a home video in the beginning, and then it became a release for movie in the movie theaters. And seeing it on a big screen, you were aware of just of mouth flaps more than you were on the small screen. And I think we spent a good day mixing the sound of that movie, moving people's dialogue so it fit better. It always seemed just a little like a frame off. And it was maybe the most frustrating part of making that movie was making sure that the dialogue in limited animation on the big screen looked right.
Yeah, that sounds really annoying. I mean, as a guy who does a podcast, and I do editing, and I have to like shift audio files around and stuff like that. And if something's off, I'm going in there and fine tooth combing it, and making sure it's all right. But I'm using technology of today, not technology of 1993. So I'm sure that
Well,
was really difficult at the time.
yeah, and it's difficult because it's only a frame off, but you sort of see it, and
Yeah.
you wonder, and after a while, your eyes start to go crazy. But but we did, but it worked out in the end.
Do you have a particular favorite scene of the film? And then also, do you have a particular scene where you wish you had more time or something was different about it?
Well, there are scenes in which I wish the animation was a little more fluid than it is. But one of my favorite scenes and one of my favorite performances is by Hart Bachner, and he plays Arthur Reeves, the councilman who is with a sinister past. The scene where he gets affected by the Joker gas, and it has to explain this horrible story while laughing his head off, is one of my favorite scenes and favorite performances in the film. And I was to be in the studio was like an electric thing to watch.
I bet.
He did it perfectly the first time, and we may have used his first take, but we did one more take with him, and it was equally as good. And that's what we do. We usually like to get at least two takes to have choices, and he just did that beautifully. And it's one of my favorite scenes.
It's one of my favorite scenes. I have my brother's favorite scenes as well. We have over the years have always loved to. There's that particular scene where he's laughing and goes, "Oh no!" when he sees Batman in the window,
Yes,
but he's
yes.
laughing as he says, "Oh no!" And both my brother and I have always done that, like, "Oh no!" when we're like something's happening where something's going wrong, but like it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? And it's so well animated and so well performed. And I didn't
Yeah.
know until we reviewed it recently, but he played Ellis in Die Hard, and he's like such a standout character in that movie. He's the
Yes.
guy that like sells him out, John McClane, and then goes to Alan Rickman and was like trying to make a deal and then gets killed for it. And he's a sleazy character in that, and he's a sleazy character in Mask of the Phantasm. And I love his performance in both those movies. They're great.
You're right. I forgot about Die Hard, but he's terrific in that. He's a guy who you think that there is no has no consideration for anybody else, and in the end, he sacrifices himself, and it's
Mm.
real. It's a shocking moment because you're sure he's going to give things away, and he doesn't. But no, he was very good. I liked his performance throughout the whole thing. He was good, but that
Yeah.
one scene is really it's a killer scene. So
Yeah, and it's great when there's that the scene before he's poisoned as well, where Joker comes in again. My brother and I just reviewed it, and my brother said that's his favorite scene of the whole film because the way Joker looks in that trench coat and that hat, and he comes into that office and he's having this conversation. My brother said this before, and I'll relay it to you. Joker is like a great white shark in this movie, right? He's He is that, and I'm like giving my brother full credit for that analogy because I love it so much. He's the shark where you think you can trust him. Like there's that scene where Sal Valestra goes to him and he's like, can we make a deal? Like you've got to protect me, and he's like, anything for my old pal Sal. My brother said that's like jumping into the waters with a bucket of chum and trying to make a deal with a great white, right? Like the great white just comes in and everyone's watching it like what's it going to do, and just scared, and it disrupts everything. Like when Joker comes into this movie, he totally disrupts everything and makes it even better.
Yeah.
You're following this movie and you're following like, okay, Andrea and Bruce used to be together, who's this Phantasm character, and there's the mob, and then suddenly the Joker appears and you're like, this just stepped up another level. And that's like a great white coming into the waters when there's like some sort of fish fight or something. I don't know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, he comes like almost right in the middle of the movie. He's
Yeah.
introduced, and by that time you're ready for him. You want to see him. You want the movie to start shifting into high gear here, and he does it. So
And of
yeah.
course, you said Paul obviously is the Joker guy, but then, and he's even done a comic book about his assault that happened to him during this film. How did you guys react when you found out about this?
Oh, we were all shocked and felt very bad for him. It was he got he got assaulted. I don't think it was a mugging. It was just an assault,
Yeah,
and almost like a gang thing, just to do some damage. And he got hurt. He got a bone broken and near his eye, and didn't come to work for a while, and
right.
was depressed about the whole thing. But being the great creator, the great writer that he is, he was able to, in the end, take that experience and really make a terrific book story out of it, and a biographical comic book. It was just I was, and I'm in that book too, and
You are in that book, yes.
in that book, and it was a graphic novel, so I should call it. And he was. It was fun to be in the book, but I remember those days, and I remember all the stories. So seeing them, the way he put them into his graphic novel, was fascinating to me, doubly so.
To get an
Um,
insight into what he was going through alone, essentially, right? Like he
yeah,
obviously shared some stuff with you, but I'm sure a lot he didn't share until much later.
yeah, it was horrendous, and it happened on the residential streets of Beverly Hills, a
Mm.
place where you never expect to run into a couple of thugs.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, I mean, from reading that story and seeing that journey, it made me appreciate his work even more because I know he was on the cusp of possibly giving it all up, or at least that's what he expressed in the book itself. But I think that's doing Batman. That's something that helped bring him back, I suppose. And again, I'm speculating, and also when I based off the story. But the guy, and you obviously you collaborate with him still to this day.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's
I
interesting
mean,
getting
he
your
did.
perspective.
I mean, there was a few days there where he wasn't sure he ever wanted to come back, and but time did some healing for him, I think, and he
Mm.
was. I think within a couple of weeks he was starting to write some more stuff for the series, but it was a terrible thing. It was just horrible. We're very simpatico, he and I. I mean, we understand each other, I think, a lot, and we talk in shorthand and all that, and we work really well over the phone. I haven't seen him physically in a couple of years, maybe 3 years, 4 years. But when we're on the phone, it's like, oh, old times again. And he's a pleasure to work with. He really is. And we
Yeah.
have pretty much the same take on Batman. So,
Well,
and
that
and
helps.
that yeah, that helps a lot. And that, I mean, we see him, we see Batman, I think, as partially, as I was saying, a juvenile fantasy, and that you've got to, you know, realize that as you're writing stories about him.
Yeah. Yeah, so with this particular story with the film, The thing that also stands out, besides the amazing animation and the amazing story that you all collaborated on, is also the music by Shelley Walker. It's just incredible. She's even cited it when back when it came out that it was her best work on Batman, is what she said. And I'm not going to argue with her there, but we've had previous guests like Kevin Altieri share memories of hearing some of her musical scores for the first time, including the Two-Face theme. And I wanted to ask you, what memories do you have of Shirley and hearing her music for this film for the first time, or just in general?
Oh my gosh, I think that her music elevates this, helps to elevate this from a home video into a movie. It's one of the areas of the movie which is truly theatrical, truly big, and I've loved all her work. But her Batman theme, I've loved from the first moment I heard it. Very plaintive theme. What blew me away from the very beginning is the chorus, this chanting going on in the opening credits, which I don't know if I told you this last time, but the words that the singers are singing in this, like a choir. But anyways, the words are our names backwards, and so it sounds very sort of it sounds like old Roman.
Yeah, operatic, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's somewhere.
That's it's incredible. I've been told actually, and also read that those particular names are names that weren't being credited for having worked on the series or on the film, like people that had worked on it briefly but weren't credited, and she wanted to credit them. Now I don't know if they were people in her orchestra or what, but I heard that those are names of people sung backwards that weren't credited that she wanted to have in the credits in her own way.
I've never heard that, but it would be like her to do that
Right.
because yeah, she was a very democratic person. So
Yeah, I've heard,
um,
and it's brilliant. Also, I read that Hans Zimmer worked on this film. He was one of the synth people that worked on this film.
I have to tell you, that's news to me. I didn't know
Really?
that. Yeah,
That's what I've read. Well, I tell you what, there's some facts here from our review that we recently did that I'd be interested to know if I won't read them all, but if some of them are bullshit, right? Like you read a lot of stuff, so I'd be interested to know. Let me just pull it up here. You've already debunked some of this where I read a fact where it's like the film is influenced by Batman Year One and Batman Year Two, including the Reaper. But as you said, you didn't know who the Reaper was until after you had written the film. Was there any Batman Year One influence in this film
I don't I don't think so. But it's been
compared to it?
31 years so
Right?
since I
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
and
Um,
I like year one very much. So, but I
I
don't think
mean,
so.
there's just some things people pull from year one in comparison, like his first night out and he's in the balaclava and like the leather jacket and he's not Batman yet, he's a vigilante, right? Like that's you see something similar in year one. And also Batman Begins years later did that with Christian Bale and he's like in a balaclava and stuff, which was very reminiscent of the Phantasm. But then there's also his escape from the police, that whole police chase sequence is similar. But if you're going to have Batman versus the police, there's always going to be people that say it's year one influence. So that's why I wanted to ask you if that was something you had in mind or not. Which clearly it probably wasn't. It was just a coincidence.
It's strange that the things that you write and you don't realize that they had happened before. And one of them was Two Face. I wanted to do Two Face as a split personality before he became Two Face, before
Mm.
the accident. And it turns out Andy Helfer had the same idea in a
Oh,
comic book
right.
he did ours, and I just never realized it.
Well, there you
And
go. I mean, great minds, right?
great mind.
Okay, here's a good one. Citizen Kane served as an influence for the flashbacks, a story about loss and the passage of time.
Well, in a way, yeah, I love Citizen Kane. And I love the flashbacks tell the story. Really, I mean, they keep pushing the story ahead. And I would let me put it this way: I was not afraid to use flashbacks because of Citizen Kane.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a
and
good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, that makes sense. So the next one, the computer-generated Gotham City at the opening credits, was considered to be used in the animated series afterwards as the backdrop for Gotham City to replace the matte paintings. Is that bullshit or is that true?
I never heard that.
Okay,
And
so
but I don't know why we didn't use it. It was nice. Maybe it just looked too different for
I
the
think it would
series. But
have, yeah, it would have thrown off it works for the film, but I think it would
yeah,
have thrown off the whole vibe of the animated series if you had that. And then years later, there was a Spider-Man show that had a computer-generated city, and honestly, it dates that show because the technology just wasn't there in the '90s to really make it, pop. It works for the credits, but those matte paintings you have in the show are timeless, right? Like they'll live on forever. They work. So I'm glad
absolutely.
that if that was true, I'm glad it didn't happen. Okay, we've got here's one: the dummy corporations O'Neill Funding Corp and Adams Tool and Die shown on
Yes,
Batman's computer screen are to Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams.
yes, we do that often. Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome. I love that. Then we've got the character of Arthur Reeves originated in the comics Half in Evil. Reeves was a short lived comic relief who had a bone to pick with Batman. He ceased all complaints after Batman frightened him with a senseless one timed boo. Apparently, he scared him with a boo.
Yeah, that's probably true. I probably got that from the comic books.
Gotcha.
And the reason
Cool.
I say that is because one of my writers is Michael Reeves, as I said, and they're spelled the same way. And I don't think I would have used Arthur Reeves as a name if he wasn't in the comics. So it's just a coincidence that my writer and this character had the same names, but I didn't. So I'm saying to you, I think I got it from the comic books. Yes.
Gotcha. So here's one that includes you. Bruce Timm went through approximately 20 different character designs for the Phantasm before he created the version that we see on screen. The large blade on the right hand was not part of Timm's original design and was added later at Alan Burnett's insistence.
Oh, I don't remember insisting anything, but he did have several versions of it. I'm not sure it was 20, but he did have several versions of it, and I don't remember having any battles with him about the knife. Never. So, or the blade.
Was that something you wanted, the blade?
Yeah, I think I did. Yes,
Yeah,
I think
it's
I
cool.
did.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the blade, and it was great for the action figure as well. Which actually that leads me to a really interesting thing. You know what I'm about to say, right? The action figure that was sold, which
Yes.
the Phantasm, the mask was off on the action figure. So when you would go to buy the Phantasm, you'd see
You would
it's on.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
All I can figure out is that the movie was out of the theaters and they didn't care,
I guess
and
so. Yeah.
they were staying true to it. So that's fine.
And what else do we have here? Oh yeah, the final one here. During early development, the film was going to be called Batman Masks. It was, however, changed to Batman Mask of the Phantasm during production.
That's true. That's
Why?
true.
So where did that come from in changing the title?
It seemed too. Maybe it didn't seem too dramatic a title. So we want to add some drama to it. So we added the Phantasm, which was a character I didn't realize. I didn't think the name Phantasm had been used in comic books, and apparently it had.
Oh right.
Marv Wolfman thanked me for using the name because I guess he got a check for it. I don't
Oh
know.
no kidding! I didn't even know that. That's great.
Yeah, but he had a character called Phantasm in one of the comics he wrote. But I didn't get the name from it. It was just great minds again.
Yeah,
So
again, great minds. Yeah. Now, with Phantasm, were there any ideas that were thrown around to use her again in either a sequel to the movie or the animated series? Were there any plans to possibly bring her back? I know she comes back way down the line in a Batman Beyond Justice League kind of combo episode. Um, you see her briefly because she's like hunting Terry McGinnis's parents. But was that character ever considered for a sequel or anything like that before her appearance years later?
no, it never was, and it's not been picked up too much in the comic books. I think she's had a couple of appearances, But it's a story that really is has a beginning, middle, and end, and
Mm.
I think that's the reason why it hasn't people haven't picked up on it, and it's fine with me. But no, we had no plans to put her in the series at all. We felt that that story was over. So
And then nothing in the. I know. Well, I suppose that leads me into my question before I say this part of it. The last time we spoke, you were completing season 3 of Batman: The Adventure Continues comic book series that you co-wrote with Paul Dini. Are
yeah.
there any plans to return for season 4 of that series?
No, not yet. This may be it. And I'm holding in my hands the second to last comic, and
Ooh.
next one is coming out very soon, and I think that's going to be it. They'll collect it, of course, and put it in a graphic novel
Mhm.
form. Be nice, and but that may be it, unless this is groundswell to do more of them. But I haven't heard that that's happening, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, you had that was the same with season 2, right? You thought that was it, and then
Yeah,
season 3 came. So you never know. Crossing my fingers. Like I said, I haven't read season 3 because I'm waiting for the graphic novel collection, and I'll definitely read the hell out of that, like I did with season 1 and season 2. And yeah, season 4. I mean, I really like the Phantasm and Andrea, and I've always wanted to see more stories. So take that for what it is, man. But I think there's
okay.
a lot of fans out there love that character. They love Mask of the Phantasm. And yeah, I think Andrea, you crafted such an amazing character there that it would be great to see her return in some form or fashion. So I fingers crossed on this end, at least.
Yeah. It's something we would think about if we went into another year of the adventures continue. It's just we haven't been told yet, so we'll see.
Okay, great. Well, I hope so because I think it's amazing that you guys are still continuing to tell stories in this world. I think it's brilliant, and I'm still getting the Batman from the same guys that I got when I was a kid, which I love because it's just great to get new content in this universe that you guys crafted. So I'm all on board. I mean, hell, if it was up to me, I'd be giving you guys more movies and just handing over the reins to you guys to run the Batman ship in all aspects of entertainment.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. There have been a couple of screenings. I went to a screening of it. It's having its 30th anniversary this year, Phantasm, and I was invited to go to a screening of it presented in at the Fountain Con comic book convention, which was in Kansas City, just outside Kansas City, and that was fun to see it again. I hadn't seen it in years. And there's going to be another screening by a film society in Macon, Georgia, on the weekend of October 22nd. So, you people out in Georgia, if you're listening and want to see the movie in a big theater, it's going to be coming there. And so I'll see. And I've been invited. I'm going to be speaking there about the film too. So,
Oh, awesome! Yeah,
well,
I'm jealous. I'm not near Georgia.
yeah, well, it should be fun. But it's interesting that I get to see it for a couple of big screenings in this 30th anniversary year. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that for the 30th there is a new resurgence of watching this film because like I said it's being released on 4K. There's screenings that you're getting to attend to, and I think more of this stuff like I'm hoping that Warner Brothers does do more of this stuff because we've lost some people recently that were big parts of the show, and I just feel like the more that everyone that contributed to this that was involved, the more we get to hear from them and hear about the stories. And you remember things like you remembered something earlier when you were just talking about the making of this that you really hadn't shared before. And I think that's great because the more that we know about the making of this, the better, in my opinion, because people are going to be watching this movie forever. Like it's a standout film.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to make, and I'm glad people still enjoy it. It's nice. It's very nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully go and check out a screening over here. I think there's one in November, and I've never seen it on the big screen, so I'm gonna definitely go and check that out. I'm really looking forward to it. And before we go, I just wanted to share a story with you about this movie because I love this movie. Obviously, we've been talking about it, and I love the animated series. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this movie. It's literally just I've lost count over the years. Yeah, and it's great because as a kid I got it on one level, and then as like a teenager I got it on another level, then a young adult, and then a grown man, and it's like there's layers that I've gotten to understand as I'm watching it, and I always find something new when I watch it, which is great. But it used to be my go-to movie when I was going to university out in America. I went to a university in Maine, and I was a film student, and it was my go-to, like if I needed cheering up or I wanted to be reminded of home, or I watched something, just something familiar, something comforting. I would even watch it to fall asleep sometimes. Yeah, but the thing that I wanted to share with you the most is that the DVD menu, when this was out on DVD back in the early 2000s, would always wake me up, because once the film ended, Shirley Walker's theme would just go like bah, and just like blast throughout my dorm room, wake my roommate up as well, and he'd be like, fuck's sakes, you're watching that fucking thing again. And like it was just, and my roommate even not only got to watch the film over and over again and ended up appreciating it because I loved it so much, that he was like, oh, I've never seen this, and like loved it. But he heard the theme so much that he would sing it throughout the day because it was just playing on loop at night. So this movie just, it's been with me, ever since I was a boy. So I love it, and it's absolutely a standout movie for me. So it's been a real pleasure to have you back on again to talk to you about making it, because there's been so many
You have a
things.
good time. Thank you. It was fascinating.
Well, you're welcome. There's just been so many things that you watch, and you always wonder. And there's things online, like I said, but it's great to hear it from the man himself. The one who penned this whole story. So thank you for coming on the show, Alan. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
Take care.